All right, hello everyone, and welcome to Board Game Broadscast, the first board game broadcast of 2020. Happy New
Yay! We
Year!
survived this! Happy New
Yeah,
Year!
we did it. We survived 2019. I think we all deserve to celebrate.
Yeah. That's been a lot. I feel like people have been posting lots of things of like kind of retrospectives and like, woo, can't wait to start a new year, like, because of all the other stuff. And I'm like, I mean, I don't know. Yeah. So I think a lot of people are like, we survived for sure.
Yeah, we got
Yeah.
through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and lots of changes going on for both of us too. As you can tell, we
Right.
have our usual background settings. I'm actually at my parents' house in British Columbia, Canada. So
Yeah.
I actually left Toronto just over a week ago. Oh my God, it's just been a
Yeah.
week.
Like,
Yeah.
moved out, sold your stuff.
Yes. Yeah. All my stuff I sold so much stuff. Yeah. I sold
Yeah.
all my stuff, packed up and headed west. So yeah. So actually on Monday, I am going to be going on a road trip for 3 months.
That's
Um,
so fun. That's so
making a
cool.
big, yeah, I'm super excited. Making a huge loop de loop of the US and Canada and trying to link up with as many broads along the way as
Are
possible.
you,
They
are you
not
coming to St. Louis?
I honestly looked to see if I could add St. Louis to it, and it added like a 5,000 kilometers or something.
We don't have kilometers here.
All right,
We
whatever.
ha- we have
200
miles.
miles, 250 miles or whatever.
I'm
Or is it?
5 hours from Chicago, so you would like
No, it's
hit
less.
New Orleans, go up to St. Louis, go to Chicago. So you can do like a figure eight.
That's true. And maybe I'll just live on the road. Maybe I'll just live out of my van,
Just
out of my parents' van.
it's
But
fine.
I will see you at Board Game Broad's Playtest Fest. In
Yes, I need to buy my plane ticket, so otherwise I'm gonna have to like paddle, I guess. But yeah, I will be there. Yay!
Maybe you can meet me somewhere, and then you can get in the van, and I can drive you the rest of the way.
That would actually be super fun.
Yeah,
Thelma and Louise without the dying at the end. Spoiler.
yeah. Gonna try not to drive off a cliff. Yeah, oh, yeah. Spoiler alert. Sorry,
It's been
man.
out for a while. It's fine.
The movie comes out in the 80s. I think it's okay. Or was that the
It's
90s?
fine.
But
The
yeah,
90s.
so lots going on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing that. I play tested my wind game yesterday and it went really well.
Mm-hmm.
So this game I'm calling it Where the Wind Blows. And it's all different things floating around the wind, and you're trying to group them together to clear them out to get points. And as you go along, you're collecting the items, and you can use the items to buy cards that give you abilities or points or both. And as you're clearing things, the items drop down in the direction that the wind is blowing, and that direction changes. The game goes on. You can also
Mm-hmm.
the wind if it can give you more points. You can create combos. Our guest tonight, Shannon McDowell, she play tested this at Proto and she's a big
Mm-hmm.
puzzle designer and she liked it. And that was a few months ago. So that was a good sign. So I
Cool.
did it yesterday and it went super well. I added a timer. So each person only gets 30 seconds to make their moves. And that actually really helped it because it was pretty slow.
Mm-hmm.
So it increased the pace, which was good. Um, and not too many other major changes. And they just really liked it. They wanted to keep playing, they wanted to keep talking about it, and those are always good signs.
Well,
So
that's cool.
yeah, I'm
Yay.
really excited about that. And I'm excited for you to play it in New Jersey.
Yeah. Well, I have, I guess, about a week or so to finish making changes to a game. A game publisher really likes this one game of mine, so told me it's 95% of the way there. And it's just that
Okay.
5%, and also want to change the theme, and also this, and also that, also this. And so it's fine.
Changing
The
the
only
theme is a pretty big that's a pretty big change.
Yeah. Right. Because if you just like, because if you just paste it on, then
Yeah, you can't
you
just
know,
paste
like
that on.
you can't just paste it on. So,
No.
so making some changes, but the thing is fundamentally at the end, there's a part like what the game is about, and what makes the game unique, special, and cool is not what I'm having to work on. it's basically the element that lets you interact with the way that the game is designed and what makes it interactive and cool. And I feel like
Okay.
it's not right. And I'm frustrated because I can't figure out what is probably the best, simplest solution that would let you play the game as it should so that the focus is where it needs to be, not on this other thing that's really fundamentally distracting from the game itself. So,
Okay. I guess you can't give us
um,
details because it's with a publisher.
I mean, the thing is, it's a race game. And so, in
Okay.
this race game, how far you can go on a turn is the part that playing with in terms of like how we're using dice, because
Yeah.
you can't have roll and move because that's box office poison in the game world. but
Yeah.
but it's meant for kids and kids are okay with that. And if it gives like a twist on it for kids where they have more choices, like that's cool too. So we're just trying to like figure out like, the thing that's really frustrating is like I honestly at this point feel like I don't even know if there needs to be dice or whatever. Like pick a number, that's how far you can go, and then players just take their turns trying to like maximize what they're doing on the board because really that's what the game is
Yeah.
about.
I like that.
So I mean, right. And so it's one of those things where, and there's some other, so it's been good because I'm not at home. I'm in Northern California. So in case you're wondering where my wall of games is, I'm not in a bathroom or you thought it was a gym. Um,
Yeah.
but my friend here that I'm hanging out with, he's a really big war gamer. And so he has a very different perspective on games and what they are. And it's been really, really good having his perspective on the game itself because he likes all types of games. He plays games with his nephews, so he'll play any game. But so it's been really good having that outside perspective, like more so than I realized because he was really mad at certain aspects of the game. And
Okay.
that's cool because it gave us kind of like points to talk about. And
Yeah.
because of that different perspective. So I didn't actually
Mm-hmm.
really expect it to be as helpful as it was to talk things out with him. So huzzah. you know so
Yeah.
yeah so I've got like a week and a half before I'm supposed to send them a copy of it, and so I feel like I will send rules for the thing they wanted me to do, and then I will send them rules for here's what I think you should do, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds good. Sounds like
Mhm.
that's a lot more work than 5%, though.
And that's the thing too, it's like because as I make changes that I think need to be made, you don't want to detract away, because there was like certain things like, oh, it'd be cool if you added this and this, and then I'd say, okay, what about this and this? Or like, sounds great, but really you're so close, don't get too far from it. So it's just um
Yeah. You don't want to
plus
change
too,
too much.
yeah. And so especially when it's like how much of this is a game and how much is this the product that I'm trying to sell and I don't mean that in a bad way, because at the end of the day it has to be a product they can sell. So
Create a
what's the
product.
best, yeah, so what's the best product that I'm happy with that they're gonna like, I think, so it's a good
That's a
challenge to
lot.
have. It's a
Week and a half?
frustrating challenge. But yeah, I mean, I've been working on it for like a month since BGG so
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we've ruled out a lot,
Okay.
and now it's time to like, okay, what's left, and like what works, and how can we make it work? So yeah.
Well, best of luck to you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I believe in you. Is this the game that I played at Fan Expo?
No, this is that was Valkyrie. This is a
No, I
circular race
played.
game.
Yeah, I
The,
played.
the
I
cir-
played Valkyrie and the circular race game, and
this is
you
the this is the
almost
this
threw it off the table. You were so over it in August.
Well, not over it. It's just I've been working on it for so like it's been years at this point,
Yeah,
from
you're
having
you're
different
ready to be
publishers
done with
having
it.
it and everything. Yeah, and when you're like squeezing so much juice out of a lemon, it's hard
Yeah,
to have that fresh perspective. It's hard to have that like what is the core problem and what's a new way when you feel like you've tried so many different things. So
absolutely.
having to believe there is an answer that's correct and that's good and I can get there, that like idiotic, I'm going to do this kind of mentality is harder to hold on to, but it's kind of
Yeah,
what I still need to like close a deal. So we'll see.
yeah. You got it. You're so close. You can do it. I
Yeah,
believe. All
I think
right.
we got it.
We're going to add in our guest today, Shannon McDowell. and going to chat with her for the. All right.
Hey.
Hey, Shannon, how's it going?
Yay, Shannon!
Good. How are you guys doing?
So
Good, how are
now.
you? It's we have it like Kathleen's up on the top this episode. She's up here. Right here.
Oh, well, I'm on my phone, so I didn't even bring my I didn't even bring my computer with me. I'm on vacation in California, so yeah.
It actually works well.
Back, right, it's like propped up on my arm and this whole thing. It's great.
All right, we're so excited to have Shannon. Thank you so much for joining us, and thanks so much for joining us on very short notice as well.
Really yeah, you are lucky. I had to get dressed today for this.
Yes, I know. I'm not wearing stretchy pants, so it's
I am.
There you go.
I bought these orange sweatpants, and I swear to you, I just want to live in them forever. I'm a sweatpants convert now. But
I'd support that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. My entire suitcase is all stretchy pants and one pair of jeans. Like jeggings though, so they're really stretchy pants with denim. All right, so yes, I'm so excited that you could join us, Shannon. I've been wanting to have you on the show to do such things. For anyone who might not know you, but they should, it was a quick short bio of your industry your role in the tabletop industry.
All right, so I'm a board game and puzzle designer. So I actually was designing puzzles before I was designing board games. But I've been playing hobby games and designing for the last, I don't know, like 4 years or so. It's not that long, really. But currently I work at Wilfrid Laurier University in Brantford, Canada, as a research associate and in their game design program. So what I do there is I research escape rooms and cultural bias in escape rooms. So puzzles and board games led very naturally to escape rooms.
Yes.
So I'm really interested in the cultural bias part because I teach gifted kids, and in order to get in our gifted program, they have to pass the IQ test, and IQ tests certainly have had their problems with.
Actually my starting point for research, because of course there's no research on cultural bias in escape rooms. I'm the first one doing this, but when I'm looking at cultural bias, I start with the education industry and IQ tests because those are like the original examples of cultural bias.
Yeah, like, so for example, a question about like there's a picture of a grand piano. What is this? And so if you don't know what a grand piano is because you're not of a socioeconomic level to like have experience with grand pianos, is that an indicator of your intelligence? No, of course not. But that's a good kind of classic example of something that was on like unintentional, but definitely shows cultural bias for sure.
Yep. And that's such an issue you find in escape rooms because it's when an escape room designer uses their cultural knowledge, their bias, and says, well, this is common knowledge for me, thus it's common knowledge for everyone. That's not true. There's a lot of people, video games, who no one grew up playing all the same video games. Maybe if you're about the same age and in the same socioeconomic bracket and in the same community, maybe you played the same video games, but you can't even rely on that. So that's an issue. And especially because I was part of the design team for the Red Bull Escape Room World Championship, where we had teams from 22 countries all solving the same puzzles in escape rooms. That's a huge issue. Because, we had some teams that didn't speak English. We had some teams where symbols meant something completely different in their country than it would in North America. So, there's some of those examples, or hand gestures meant different things. So you have to be very careful about what you're presenting these teams to make it a fair contest.
Absolutely. So when you came into so you joined the design teams while they're in the middle of creating all the escape rooms for the World Championships. And then you sort of reviewed what they had done and how did you approach what they had done to make sure to remove those cultural biases?
So for the most part, they did a really super job because they learned from the previous World Championship, what didn't work, and they applied that knowledge. So they came into it with language independent puzzles. So there was no English in the actual rooms, which helped a lot.
Good. Yeah.
It was a lot of, they approached it with a lot of kind of math puzzles and things like connecting things and logic puzzles, those kind of things that are fairly universal. You know, you don't need necessarily a background to figure in any kind of culture to figure those out. So they did a really good job. What I mostly looked for were those little cultural biases that you don't even know you have.
Right.
So things like I implemented basically colorblind accessibility, because they had red and green was an important part of some of the puzzles. And I said, well, you know what, that's not going to work. In one of the teams, I think 75% of the teams in the first World Championship, one team, 75% of the members had colorblind issues. And there was a puzzle that relied on distinguishing colors. Well, they were at a disadvantage right from the beginning. So that was one thing. And that's not necessarily a cultural bias issue, but it is an accessibility issue. So I looked at some of that too.
Well, I have a question that's not related to cultural bias, but still escape room. When it comes to puzzles, thinking about this also from a game design perspective, like what makes a good puzzle, either for an escape room or even a game, but just from escape rooms, what makes a good puzzle?
A good puzzle is solvable.
Okay.
I would say that is the main criteria for me. And that, you know, it's different for everyone else. For everyone has a different perspective on what makes a good puzzle, but puzzles themselves they're basically a game where you're always trying to get to the win state. Like there is one win state and that's what you're trying to achieve. So, and there's multiple ways you can do that. If you think about it, cooperative games are puzzles. You know, there's some random elements in there, but for the most part, that's a puzzle that you're trying to solve. And so escape room puzzles are very similar to that. But I would say for an escape room, what you want to do, you don't necessarily want paper puzzles. Those are useful in different situations. So like crossword puzzles, you can buy a book of crossword puzzles. There's puzzle hunts. If you want a whole bunch of really complicated paper puzzles, do a puzzle hunt or a puzzle pint. That many cities around the world have puzzle pint events where you can just do complicated paper puzzles. Escape rooms, you want physical things that players can interact with. You want big things. You want exciting things to happen that they won't be able to do in their own house.
Yeah.
That's the whole point, is getting people interacting physically in another environment, maybe making them play a character that they wouldn't normally play. And so the details of the puzzles themselves may vary, but like you want a puzzle that's really, your puzzles to be easy to solve, but have a balance of, I don't want to get too technical, balance of process and aha in your puzzle. So that's two terms that I know there's a lot of escape room people and puzzle people that use those terms, or different terms meaning the same thing. So process is like where you have to figure out, you know what you have to do, but the process of doing it takes all the time.
Okay.
Right?
Do you usually start your puzzle design from what you want the answer to be and work backwards? Or do you say, we want to do this cool thing and then design forward to figure out what the answer might be?
So combination, that's kind of like theme versus mechanics in board games.
Okay.
You need to know the answer before you start designing the details of the puzzle, because and work backwards from that generally, because the answer in puzzles is usually the most important part. So you want to lead players to a specific answer. But the design part, usually I'll have a mechanic in mind. Like, this is what I want to do. So I pulled out an example actually while I was waiting.
Oh, cool.
If you, I will spoil for one of my escape room card games, but that's okay. It's just one puzzle. I use this as an example in classes a lot. And sorry, the cat is loud. So if you hear him. Yeah, so this is, I don't know how big my screen is, if you can see both of those. So this was in an art escape room. So you've got a color vocabulary list and you have the lock that has the series of colors. So I started this by, this is actually a simpler version of a puzzle that I did for a puzzle hunt. And my idea was to create a code using colors instead of numbers or letters or sounds or anything like that. So instead I used colors as a code to substitute for letters. And so in this, the aha is really getting the first word. If you can figure out what the first word is on the vocabulary list, you're pretty much set and you can continue from there. So, but this puzzle is my favorite of all the ones I've designed because it's very smooth. Once players have that first aha, every single part of that puzzle makes sense and you can tell what your next step should be and your next step should be. And some players skip ahead and guess the answer based on when they get halfway through. And that's really exciting because that means it's a good puzzle when they can see where it's going and they don't have to waste a lot of time on the process part of it.
And how do you lead people towards those aha moments? So you don't want it to be too obvious, but you also don't want it to be too hard.
So that's a balance, and that you have to find in play testing and beta testing. So you can signpost puzzles, it's called, and signposting is not telling people what to do, not providing hints, but providing clues in the context of the puzzle or in the environment that people see and subconsciously realize, and then that gives them the hint of, oh, this is what we need to do. I bet this is it. So for example, for this one, color vocabulary, what's the first word on that list?
Red.
Right.
Oh, and what's that first one? Then you're like,
and how did you know that?
Because it's 3 letters and the first one is like color red.
Exactly. So that was me signposting that I could have made that first letter any color, but I made it red. And then so you're like, oh, okay, red makes sense there because the first letter is red. Plus it's the only color that has 3 letters. So
that's very cool.
That's the first step to solving that puzzle.
Yeah. Do you find yourself using a lot of the same types of puzzles over and over again? Is there a time when you're like when you have a moment like, I've never seen this type of puzzle before, I want to try to do it? Like what combination do you try to strive for as far as innovation versus tried and true and effective?
So I always want my puzzles to be unique because that's the point, right? You want a puzzle that people haven't seen before.
Right.
But I think it depends on who your market is, right? If your market is puzzle hunt players, that level of difficulty is usually very, very high. Puzzle hunts. I am not good at puzzle hunt puzzles. I do them after the puzzle hunt is over, so I don't have the stress of trying to solve them in a timeline.
Right.
But they have multiple levels, are very complicated. Sometimes I'll see things in puzzle hunt puzzles and be like, oh, that's a good idea. I wonder if I can twist that and make it a little more accessible for, your average hobby or mass market player. And that's what I aim for. I like very clean, simple puzzles. And then that's all in testing too. And you want to find a balance between process and aha. You don't want too much. If you have too much aha moments, then players get frustrated because it seems like it's all guessing. But if it's too much process, they get frustrated because they're spending too much time doing busy work. So you want a balance between all of that and a balance between types of puzzles. Because with escape rooms, you've got teams playing and everyone has their own area of expertise. So you want things that every member of the team can have their standout moment.
Yes, that's really important. And just to go back to also just the physical natures, so we're talking about escape rooms, but we're also talking about escape room games. And that was kind of the example because you actually design escape room games as well. So people can play these escape room type puzzles at their homes.
Right, like escape room tabletop games.
Right.
Exactly. So, but talking about escape rooms, using the physical space in interesting ways is something that I personally love about escape rooms. And one of my favorite things is to discover things that you don't expect. Like you see a door and you think, okay, well, we'll probably have to get through that door. My favorite escape room I ever did was the back of the fireplace opened up.
Yeah.
And it was just completely unexpected. And it was such a cool moment. So can you talk a bit more about sort of using the physical space in interesting ways?
Yeah, like I think, that's one of the biggest surprises that you can get in escape rooms, especially the surprise of, oh, there's another room I wasn't expecting to be there. And that's why a lot of escape room reviewers won't tell you how many rooms are in the escape room because they consider that a spoiler. How many rooms are in the game?
I can see that.
So yeah, there was actually a particular puzzle that was in the Red Bull Escape Room World Championship in 2019 that I'm not going to spoil for anyone who ends up watching the TV show, but it had a really cool surprise moment where players had to realize that all was not as it seemed, and there was actually more space than they thought there was. So that's it was a really fun thing to watch teams discover that moment and the surprise. And then from there, because they realized, okay, there's something we have to do, but we don't know how to do it. And then realizing there was more to the room than they thought there was. And that let them do what they needed to.
Right. It reminds me of what my friend, John, who used to design Apple stores and went to design school, was just the concepts of like surprise and delight.
Yes.
So you talked about surprise, but then also that sort of delight that happens, not just from the unexpected, but that like really pleasing moment. And it's weird because you don't think about that. Like you may or you may not think about that for like escape rooms as far as that kind of like joyful emotional side, but really that's what you're trying to do. You want to give people like that cold logical sort of puzzle, but then have it like that. That's where I think the magic and the special sauce is when it translates over into, that surprise, that delight, that joy.
Oh, for sure. Like every time you progress past a gate, every time you open a lock, that should be a moment of joy, a moment of excitement in the room. Because otherwise, why are they playing? You need that sense of progression is very important in an escape room. You have to give that positive feedback and let players know they're on the right track. Otherwise, it becomes more frustrating than fun.
Absolutely.
So, how has designing escape rooms informed or changed your approach to designing just regular tabletop games?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm not sure. It's given me a better appreciation for using the same group of playtesters over and over again. Let me tell you, because you can only test a puzzle with the same group once.
Oh, right.
Yes, very true.
So that's a hard part about escape rooms is to get good testing. You have to really reach a wide audience. I think it's I already tended towards very streamlined, almost like simple games. I like very clean design in board games. And I think designing puzzles and escape rooms has made that even more clear, more of a focus for me, because I like clean puzzles as well. And you have to be very careful with puzzles. You can't have any extra pieces. You can't have any art that maybe will distract people, because players will find their own red herrings. You don't need to provide them for them. But you actually need to take away anything that could be a red herring. And so I think that has really helped me reduce the design space that I work with for board games and just get rid of all those, if there's a rule that no one remembers in my prototype, it's gone. I don't care how
Yeah.
thematic it was or how important I thought it was to the game. If people don't remember that rule, clearly it doesn't need to be there.
Right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and just cutting out duplicates. If two mechanics do essentially the same thing, well, probably you only need one of those.
Mhm.
Right. And I'm just curious, Shannon, because you have a really cool game called Project Ghost House, where every player has a different role, and they're basically have their own game mechanic that they're interacting with. Like one player is doing deck building, one player is doing worker placement, and so on. And I'm just curious if that maybe, well, actually, maybe you came up with this before you started working so much with escape rooms, but you talked about how escape rooms, you want to have everyone to have their own moment, to have feel
Mhm.
contributing and feel like they're helping the team. And it almost has that same sort of feel with Project Ghost House.
Yeah, that's exactly true. Project Ghost House, because it's a cooperative game and asymmetric, everyone has a very defined role. They can only do so much.
Mhm.
But everyone has to work together. And yeah, that's exactly what I was going for, is kind of that same escape room feeling, but in a board game.
Totally.
Because unlike, Pandemic does a good job at giving people their own role and their own special abilities,
Mhm.
but I wanted to take it a step further and kind of make like vast cooperative,
Yes.
something where it's extremely different roles and extremely different goals and
Right.
mechanics, but everyone working together.
Yeah, and that's so important though, to prevent, people quarterbacking each other. Is like literally you have your own game to play, and this is my game to play.
Yeah.
And right,
Right.
that's interesting.
That's a really good point, actually. You kind of take the alpha player out of the cooperative game with the way that you approach Project Ghost House.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
tried to make it so every player has interesting choices to make on their turn, but every player also has an element of luck on their turn. And that luck cannot be quarterbacked. So,
Right.
if the player who plays the dice game, they can roll the dice and someone can try and tell them what to do with those dice now that they've rolled it, but they're the ones making the decision to roll or do a re-roll or that kind of thing.
Right.
So trying to...
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I just want to bring it back to cultural bias a little bit because we have some audience questions here.
Oh, cool! Yay!
Yeah. So Christy Dina is just saying thank you, Shannon, for sharing all of this. And first of all, wants to know if your cultural bias research is published anywhere that anyone could read.
Not yet. I'm currently in the process of finishing coding all the information that I've gotten from interviews and such. I've been interviewing escape room enthusiasts, so people who have played multiple escape rooms across different countries. And I'm currently coding all that information and starting to write the paper on that. So hopefully within a few months.
Cool.
Yes, keep us updated on that because that would be very, very cool to read.
Yeah, I also there's a video that I've made that should be coming out shortly that is based on the research I did for the Red Bull Escape Room World Championship on cultural bias in escape room media. So directly on intro videos, hint videos, cutscenes in escape rooms.
So where does that video live?
It will live once I'm done recording it. I got some information back just this afternoon from an escape room that I've been talking to and got some media from them to include. So it will be on the bgnlab.ca.
Okay.
So
if that goes on, okay, and if that goes on YouTube, which I hope it does, we can like it and then people can see it on our channel as well.
Yeah, it should be on YouTube too.
Perfect. The follow-up question from Christy is, are there any cultural bias and accessibility obstacles that you've identified that people are surprised about or even deny exist?
Always. I definitely had people in my interviews when I said, oh, well, the question that I asked leading into cultural bias was, has there been a moment in an escape room where you've encountered a puzzle that your team hasn't been able to solve, that you or a member of your team had problems with? Because generally, if it's a well-made puzzle, if you can't solve it, that's a cultural bias issue. And there were multiple people who answered, no, I don't think we've ever come across a puzzle we haven't been able to solve. I'm like, you've done 200 rooms. Are you sure? There's not one puzzle you had problems with. So things that people, oh gosh, so many examples. Man, like silly things. Pop culture is a big one.
Yeah.
Putting a picture of an actor or a song in a room that players have to identify.
Yeah.
You may think that, oh, maybe the happy birthday song. But guess what?
Right.
That's Western culture, and not even all of Western culture. So, you know, someone from another country they have different happy birthday songs. So that's something that's hard. I actually there's a very interesting example. There's a room in Europe, I forget which country, but there was one where you have to identify, there's a bunch of pictures of children, young children, and you have to know which ones are male and female and match up names. Well, guess what? Young children in that country do not wear the same thing as young children in Canada and the US. So it's very hard to even identify male and female children, let alone match the names when the names are a language that you may not be familiar with. So that was a big one that came up. You don't even realize that names are very culturally biased, and locations. I've definitely done escape rooms even in Toronto, and I live just outside Toronto, but I don't know Toronto. Find these locations on a map of Toronto. I don't know where those streets are, you know? So that's even me living less than an hour away.
Yeah.
So.
And language is a huge thing, because I think almost every escape room I've done, there's been English. You have to read. You have to. I don't think I've ever done one where there wasn't any English language component.
Are there any universals when it comes to designing an escape room puzzle, or maybe by extrapolation board games? But are there any sort of like, best practices? What's the one word? I forget. Either way, best practices for when you're thinking like to try to start from the beginning to eliminate cultural biases.
So that's the next step of my research. So I will be doing more on that after I'm finished my current paper. That's my next planned one, is best practices and laying that out for designers.
Yes.
I would say like language free is always an ideal. There are some rooms that are language free, and there are some rooms that are attempting to be completely culturally neutral, which I applaud them, and I can't wait to see the outcomes of that. There's one being designed in the UK right now. I was talking to the owner of that, and it sounds like an interesting project. Numbers are pretty safe. Most cultures recognize the Arabic numerals that we use. So that's fairly safe as long as you keep it low. Math is not safe. Different countries use different symbols for different math processes. Plus, you don't know the level of education someone has. Order of operation is different. It's taught differently in different places. That's how those Facebook memes of how many apples, it's like 1 apple plus 1 orange equals 1 pear, and you get those, and then it's like 2 bananas equals, and they get people, because the different order of operation is different, taught differently in different places. So
that's really interesting, and I hope that this can maybe even be a book one day, which would be very no pressure, but I would definitely read that. But I just want to shift gears a little bit, because you do a lot of work with escape room design, and you've designed escape room tabletop games. But you also have done a ton, and you do a ton of really cool tabletop games. So we mentioned Project Ghost House, which Nick is saying that sounds like so much fun. It is. I've played it. At Generations, and every time I play it, it gets more. It's just so interesting. Like you say, you like to design puzzles that are unique, and that game is super unique. I've never seen
Thank you.
Yeah. So
I love it. It's the game I've been working on the longest, and I have not gotten bored of it yet. Like, it's just, which is amazing because I feel like I get bored pretty quickly with my designs. But this one I've just stuck with, and it's been so fun.
Yeah, you can tell you like it because you've put so much work and effort into it, and you can tell. So maybe you can tell us a bit more about some of the other tabletop games that you've designed over the years.
Oh gosh. Okay. Let me see if I can find my list. It's like I said, I told you guys earlier, I took off December from game design. So I did not, after the first week of December, I didn't make any new prototypes. I didn't do any play testing. I've been jotting ideas down as they come to me, but not really been working on it. So now
It's so
I'm like,
good though.
yeah,
you don't burn out.
It was a good break.
Recharge. Yeah.
But now I'm kind of like, what games am I working on?
Right.
So Project Ghost House is my big game. It's the biggest game I've designed. I have another little game that I'm calling Speed Safari. And so it is a real-time dice game, and it's basically a kid's game. But Origins this year, I had groups of designers like yelling as they were playing it at tables in the bar. So it is also a good bar game, apparently.
Fantastic.
Oh, yeah, right. So it's a little real-time dice game where you are rolling dice to match animals and then grabbing cards quickly before anyone else can. And there's, it's a specific system. And then I have so far 6 or 7 different games that you can do with that same system. So it's all the same mechanic of rolling the dice and grabbing cards, but the win condition changes. So your strategy changes depending on what type of game you're playing. So that one was really fun. And that was a game that I came up with the idea, I prototyped it and play tested it for the first time and was like, oh, I guess I'm done in like 3 days. So
that's nice.
That one was so much fun, and I enjoy playing it so much. I've also got a few learning games, like educational games that I've been working on because, of course, at Laurier, the tagline for the game design program is games to change the world. So most of the games designed by students have educational learning outcomes. So I have a game I'm working on that is called Milestones, and it's about teaching kind of how to set goals in life. It's for teenagers and young adults, learning how to set goals and how to achieve your goals. And so there's moments in the game where you're progressing through life, hitting life milestones, where sometimes your course will change. It uses a whiteboard, so players are drawing lines to connect their goals and trying to get to the next goal, but maybe then another player changes your path. So you end up at a milestone you didn't expect. And so it's about talking afterwards about, how did you feel when this happened? You know, did you correct course and did you try and go back to that first milestone, or did you continue on the path you're on? What real life events may have changed that path? So if you were in high school and attending to go to university, well, maybe all of a sudden your path changed and now you're going to a full-time job instead of post-secondary education. What could have happened in your life to have changed your path? So talking through that and just how you make choices, how you set goals, and how you achieve them. So that's been a fun one to work on too. Yeah, and then
that's really cool.
I have my escape room games. I have a set of 3 that I've designed. I've got a tile laying game that I've been working on that is, I don't know, temporary title right now is Royal Gardens. So it's based on the English landscape gardens that were really popular with gentry in the 18th century. Right. So building gardens, basically, with winding paths through them.
Cool.
Yeah, so a whole bunch. I have so many ideas.
Yeah, you do have so many ideas. And is that one of the reasons why you intentionally took a break?
Yes, because I was starting to get overwhelmed with a lot of prototypes, a lot of ideas, not quite sure what to work on next. So taking a break helped me refocus and reprioritize and decide all right, I want to go ahead with these games. These are the, this is what stage each of my games are at. And this is how I want to move forward with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's cool.
No, I think that's really important. Like we were talking earlier before the show, just how important it is to take that time, because there is a lot of in this industry to always have a million things on the go,
Right.
to always have new ideas, generating new things, play testing, go. So I think it's really important. I agree to take that step back and come back to it with fresh eyes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because especially not fresh eyes is so important, but also because we talked about this a little bit too, is when your hobby becomes monetized.
Yeah.
Then that can be a really good thing in terms of opening up new career opportunities. But it could also be the thing that you did because you enjoyed, changes, and then if you lose out on that hobby, that can be really hard on you. But also, it also it's really tough. Like with I teach what I like to do, which means sometimes what I like to do then becomes my job, and then it becomes harder to stay excited about it or to want to keep doing it after my job. That sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We have a few minutes left. There's just one more audience question here for Shannon. So this is Mary Cousin, who runs Chi-Tech.
Ooh, hey, Mary.
Hey, Mary. And she is wondering if you have read The Big Book of Brain Games by Ivan Moskovich.
No, that's not one I've read, I don't think.
Okay. I'm going to add it to our list of books to read. For Christmas, I got an escape room game, How to Design Escape Room book. And it's by a guy from Toronto. I can't remember his name. You know him, I'm sure.
Probably, if he's from Toronto, probably. Who is it?
Adam Clare. Adam Clare.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, I don't know that I've met him, but I think I've seen him online. So.
Yeah. He ran a board game jam I went to in 2012, I think. And then he wrote this book, and I'm super excited to read it because I personally love escape rooms and love the physical aspect of them, and I really want to get more into it. So that's another book that I will be reading. Are there any books that you could suggest, any other books you could suggest that people could read, not only for escape room design, but just board game design in general?
Oh, I don't know. I have a huge pile of books on my desk that are actually holding up my computer right now. But really,
I would recommend.
They're mostly theory books though, so I'm not quite sure how useful they would be for practical game design.
Well, one thing that I would recommend is Loan Shark Games and Mike Selinger.
Yeah, well,
just came out with a big book.
Great for puzzles.
Yeah, just came out with a big book on how to make puzzles.
Yeah.
And he sent one to me because I was in education, because they wanted to help other teachers do better puzzles. So it teaches you how to make all different types of puzzles. Yeah. And then there's even a book where you can work through all the puzzles, and then it tells you about how you make them. So it's the equivalent of magicians showing their tricks almost, but super helpful, really cool, very instructive. So I would say, and I forget the name of the book, but it's worth looking into.
Was that Puzzlecraft? Or is that someone else? Is that Puzzlecraft?
Yeah, that's Puzzlecraft. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
so that's
a great one.
It'd be a good starting point.
And that's a lot of paper puzzles is what he talks through in Puzzlecraft. But it's a really good start for the theory of making puzzles.
Right.
And it goes through some of the traditional paper puzzles, crosswords and pyramid puzzles. I don't know if I'm remembering that right, but there's a whole bunch of different names of types of puzzles that I can never remember. That he goes through how to make them, how to solve them, and that's the basis. That's what you need to learn, and then to expand out on your own.
That's great. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us, Shannon. It's so great to chat with you. You have so much helpful experience to share.
Yeah.
And we always have these absolutely. We always have these conversations. We chat a lot on the Board Game Broad Skype chat. But great to have other people hear all these great tips. Now this will live on the internet forever, so that's amazing.
Oh gosh,
cool.
Don't remind me.
Oh my god.
So where can people find you online, Shannon?
So I'm on Twitter at Shannon Creates. So that's probably the best place. My Twitter is all game design, just talking about that. And I haven't been on social media much lately because I've done a break from game design. But hopefully I'll be coming back within the next couple of weeks. And as I get back into designing and play testing and all that fun stuff.
Take your break, though. You deserve it.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. All right.
Cool.
Thanks so much, Shannon.
Thank you, Shannon. You're the best.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh,
Hello.
hello. Oh, hello.
I just
on a bed.
Well, I know, like, because at one point I realized, like, I think I'm pretty much just laying down at this point, so I like made myself sit up. So I'm just stepping in. Like,
Oh my
I've been on
God.
vacation, and so I'm basically on like the guest bed, just hanging out, holding up my phone for an hour, hoping my battery doesn't die. It's been a good time.
I'm just really excited to pick the thumbnail for this episode.
Oh God.
It's gonna be.
Oh my God! Right, let me see. There.
Oh, it's too late now. They're already.
No.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it was so awesome chatting with Shannon. So if anyone who doesn't know Board Game Broads, we have monthly Skype chats. Actually, I need to the next one. I just realized. Monthly Skype chats where we just hang out just like this and chat what everyone's up to, and Shannon's always there. So if you're part of Board Game Broads, join us for those monthly.
Yeah.
They're awesome. You can learn a ton, but also just connect with other designers, and it's really
super good.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna move on to our game of the show. Do you have a game?
I do. I actually, the box is downstairs, so it's gonna be like magic. But in honor of my friend who I'm hanging out with here in northern. God, it's so gorgeous. I saw a dolphin today.
Yes.
So
very excited.
It's very cool. Tomorrow I get to see redwoods. Super excited. So in honor of my friend who is a war gamer, the game is called Napoleon's Triumph by Rachel Simmons. And when he was telling me about this game as the greatest game of all time,
because your friend's a war gamer, right?
Very much so.
War game?
Much so. Yeah, it's a war game. But basically, I said, what makes it like a great game? And when we had talked about it, he said, she took a lot of like the sort of like the concepts of like what a war game is, and a war game has to have this and this, and basically was like, why? And kind of put that all aside and sort of, but looking at the fundamental aspects of what is a war game, and ultimately it's like you make a plan and the other people make a plan from the start, and then you see whose plan holds up better, whose plan comes together better. And so right, and so I actually read through all of the rules and kind of skim some of the combat stuff. I figure we'll get to that when we get to that and see it actually happen. So we are supposed to try to play it at some point, and tomorrow's my last full day here, so after redwoods and everything else, like, we better play this game because I read the rules to a war game. So but anyway, so
very cool.
I'm really excited to try it because it's a very different style of game for me, and I feel like that's always a good thing. So Rachel Simmons' Napoleon's Triumph is my game that I'm featuring today.
Thank you. It's such a good point because playing games outside of your usual favorite type of game is so important. As just a gamer, but also just especially as a designer. It's just so many different mechanics and themes and
there's no luck in this game whatsoever. So it's really just about like the purity of the choices you make and how you make them, and that's super cool.
For anyone who hasn't seen the show, I should probably explain. So this is the part of the show where we share a game that's been designed by a woman or a gender non-conforming designer. So that's a great example. And mine, I always give 3 clues. So watching, feel free to guess.
I'm terrible at this.
Yeah, I think you got 1, maybe.
Thank you for bringing that up.
I think you'll get this one though.
You always do.
I do.
That plucky can-do spirit we love so much.
Yes. I think it's optimism, but it might just be complete naivete, but we'll see.
Ooh, that's French.
Yes. Okay, first one. It's designed by the same designer as Set. If you've played the game Set, very popular.
Right.
I've actually never played Set, but I've played this game. So if you know
What?
the designer, well, you've played Set. Do you know the designer? Anyone watching? Who designed Set? It's like very popular.
No fair Googling it. If I'm on the spot, so are you.
Yeah. No Googling allowed.
No Googling.
Okay, moving on. The gameplay is similar to Gin Rummy. If you play Gin Rummy, so it's a card game. And there's a lot of Gin Rummy. It's Gin Rummy-esque. No one's chiming in on the chat, but I know there's a bit of a delay. And if Nick's watching, I feel like you would know this. Hey, Mary Cousin got the you got the designer. What's the game though? So I'll tell you the designers. Marcia Falco, Mary Cousin got that.
Okay.
Okay, so the last clue is there's a royal theme to it. Royalty. Okay. 3, 2, 1 for the chat. 3, 2, 1. Okay. 5 crowns.
Oh, okay.
5 crowns. Yeah. So I played this for the first time last night. So I really like Gin Rummy. I really enjoyed this. It's very similar. The first round, you're dealt 3 cards. Hey, Mary Cousin got it. That delay is intense. Okay. Good job. You still win, Mary Cousin. You got the designer and the game title. But yeah, so the first round, you're dealt 3 cards, and you're trying a set of 3, either 3 of a kind or a run of 3. I think there's 5. Yeah, there's 5 different suits. And then the second round, you're dealt 4 cards, trying to make a run of 3, or no, a run of 4, or 4 kind, and then so on. It keeps going round by round until 11 rounds, I think. So you're trying to have the least number of cards left in your hand. So yeah, it's very, very similar to Gin Rummy. It's really fun. The art is really beautiful too. The different kings and the queen. Yeah, it's lovely. But yeah, that was my game. Good job, Mary.
That's cool. I mean, and the nice thing too is, yeah, like, 5 queens will probably run you about like $10-15. And when I was looking up Napoleon's Triumph the Rules, I don't know if it's in print right now, but like a copy of it will run you about like $200-300. So you've got your choices based on your budget. Which of these games you'd like to add to your collection?
There you go. Or just get both. If you have the space like Kathleen has, you can get both.
Oh, stop it! No,
your 1,500 collection. It was so sad when I was moving. I didn't have a lot of space. Like I had a ton of stuff, but I did not. I mean, it wasn't really that sad because I didn't really get rid of many games at all. Those were like non-negotiable. But I gave away the games that I didn't feel too bad about. But the majority of my possessions that I kept are clothes and board games, which I'm cool with.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, if I could get rid of about 90% of my games, because like especially it's like with clothes, if you haven't worn it in 2 years, you should like sell it, donate, do something with it.
Yes, absolutely.
We've got board games that I don't know that we've played in 10 years. So what's the point of these treasured objects adding an additional layer of insulation to my house? I don't totally get that. So
yeah, you should play a game, and after you've played it, it goes to a different shelf. And then after a year, any games that don't get moved to the played shelf.
Right. It also means I need to start making sure I start actually playing games. So there's that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, like you don't play enough. New Year's resolution, play more games.
Yeah, actually, that's not bad. Because, I mean, the most recent New Year's resolution I had a few years ago was to like bourbon, and now it's my favorite drink. But I don't know that everything I do should be bad ultimately. So play more games, very positive. That is, yes, I'm at least a game a week, or at least a game night a week. I think that's like normal for gamers. That isn't just about
Who knows
design.
what's normal? Yeah.
Well, that's true. All right. Well, listen, I want everybody out there to have a happy New Year.
Yes.
Good luck with your games.
Yes.
Hopefully it's good to see everybody at our design thing. We'll be back next month. If you like our podcast and you would like to be on our podcast and your name is Mary Kuzan or anyone else really, please reach out. We would love to have you on the show.
Yes, absolutely. And we would love to get to 100 subscribers.
Break the internet.
Yeah, the internet will actually break.
Probably will.
We're at 94. We're at 94. If we get 6 more, we can have youtube.com/boardgamebroadcast.
Oh, that's fancy.
Yeah, it's none of this bit.
Oh.
Yeah, we get our own URL when we get to 100. So anyone,
if you have kids, log in on your kids' accounts and subscribe.
If everyone watching right now subscribes, we would make it. We'd be
okay.
We'd be close. We'd be close.
All right.
But yeah, so check out our YouTube channel, Board Game Broadscast on YouTube. Yeah, thanks for watching, and have a good night. See you next time, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.